Welcome everyone to the PYRESWAP show for another exciting Market Monday. I actually have a bunch of stuff that I want to immediately announce because I'm kind of bullish about it, that it happened over the weekend concerning this project. And I was at these satellite events for venture capitalists in Austin because there was F1 racing in Austin. So wherever there's F1, apparently they have these satellite events, and there was this venture capital event where there was a bunch of companies pitching. And PYRESWAP was not one of these companies, by the way, because I don't believe we actually need venture capital. But I was able to meet people who, for example, Phantom and AVAX validators were there. That was very interesting. And then on top of that, people who manage small Web3 KOLs. Speaking like in the 10,000 follower to 20,000 follower range, I was able to meet a few of those, and I think that was all extremely beneficial. Per the development meeting yesterday, I want you guys to know that we're going to make parts of the website more intuitive and stupid simple, especially on the landing page. So I realized that those 4 critical videos that I keep talking about putting on the landing page, like they haven't been there for a while, we're gonna just like go ahead and make that happen this week. We have a bunch of stuff that's happening this week. We're also going to have short form, I believe, rolling out this week. We even have another person coming to live here in the PYRESWAP house this week as well. And can you guys hear me in general chat? Can you guys hear me? Do I have audibility check? Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Oh yeah, what's going on, Jerry? What's going on, Kides? What's going on, Maddie? Yeah, big stuff. It's a great day in the market too. And I noticed that Pyre Phantom seems like it's kind of soldiering on, let's put it that way. We're going, and I don't know if I said this before, but I realized that sometimes the value offer of a project, sometimes like, yeah, Maddie, Maddie, I do it with or without it. This time though, I think it was the alcohol. Like I rarely consume alcohol, so I think the last time I did this, Maddie, do you remember Consensus when I was literally like drinking the whole time and then I like lost my voice for like a week? Do you guys remember this? Do you guys remember it? Yeah, like so that definitely happens. Like you just drink alcohol. Yeah, exactly. That stuff as well. And yeah, so that definitely happened a little bit, but I'm definitely way better off. That this was a much smaller networking foray, if that makes sense. But the point being here is that this particular event had a lot of people local to me as well, and I think that was extremely useful. Regardless, I realized like I've learned a lot about marketing, and like sometimes that executive function is like the most expensive thing that a human brain does. Are you guys aware of this? Executive function is actually like the most caloric drain on your brain. Are you guys aware of this? And who here understands what I'm talking about? So legitimately in marketing before, yes, okay, so in marketing, before you even get to the point where you're talking to somebody about their money, you have to kind of convince them subconsciously to make a decision about you. Does that make sense? And like, I didn't think about this, but this is almost like a microcosm of behavioral economics. And I definitely now understand that because this project is so complicated, we have to really make it the focal point of making it digestible and bite-sized. Does that make sense? Naturally, there will always be deep dive content, but when you're meeting people where they're at, you have to always kind of give them like bite-sized versions of it and then allow them to explore deeper on their own volition, if that makes sense. So we are in fact going to be doing stuff that helps that process, because I realized that in a project like PYRESWAP, and the way that I think about the project, the way that I think about the product, I think that I am letting people use their natural understanding of playing video games, and I'm helping them gain the skills of a real banker where they can now become a risk manager and risk assessor for other people in the economy. And to me, because I understand banking, I guess at the level I do, this seems like obviously this is an amazing gift. But to other people that don't come from that frame of reference, like they have to be shown the benefits they have to be shown the benefits in a way that makes sense to where they're at. And you have to really do this in like these snap seconds. Does that make sense? Like they have to be able to kind of like make a point of agreement or a point of interest like as rapidly as possible. So definitely in the past, and for those of you who have been with this project for a while, whether it was because of my arrogance or hubris or just hostility, I feel like I was kind of like working, like self-sabotaging this. Does that make sense? I was self-sabotaging this. What a lot of people just want from a crypto project is they want excitement. Believe it or not. Yeah, like excitement seems to be something that people realize they, like, whether they are aware of this or not, excitement is definitely in the offering. Like just the idea of excitement like has to be there. I tried to, and for those of you who know me on the roundtable level, I have been kind of like anti-excitement for like a year or two because I feel that excitement tends to obfuscate whether something works or whether it doesn't, right? Or excitement tends to, yeah, Lezio, is that a bullish emoji or a bearish? Yeah, we're all gonna make it, by the way. We're all gonna make it. These last few weeks, even though I think that a lot of people have felt that we've been hitting these hurdles of adversity, they've actually been extremely bullish. Just on our ability to kind of evolve to become the animal we need to win in this jungle. Does that make sense to you guys? So I learned about this new project. Let's actually talk about a little bit of markets and macro. How about that, guys? So let's talk about the fact that it's a fear and greed index day. Let me change the glare here. And we have fear and greed indexes for alternative.me. Can you guys understand me? Yeah. You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong, Electronic. Yeah, no, yeah, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Yeah, like everything is coming together. Like everything is coming together. We are in fact going to have like a short form factory soon. And the short form factory allows, let's put it this way. If you guys think that like it's frustrating to if you guys think your bag seems like it's being like strangled in like Pyre gas or something like this, I want you guys to consider that me and Pyre Producer have been doing this show now for like 4 months, like high production, and we haven't really grown the audience from this show. Like I think that a lot of people, when they learn about the project, they really like this show, and maybe they watch recordings of it, but the meta for video content marketing is that you need to now have short form to distribute it. Does that make sense? So we have not had that leg on the table for the longest time. We're now actually rolling that out this week. And because we're able to roll that out, this show is just going to have a larger audience. And as this show has a larger audience, we're naturally generating awareness. Does that make sense? Thank you, Jabri. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Soon, Jabri, everyone will know. Soon, everyone will know that too. So fear and greed. And by the way, I promise that I'm not reacting to greed right now. Does that make sense? So I'm not bullish right now because the greed is high. Does that make sense? So let me just say that alternative.me is at a 72, which is greed. And CoinMarketCap, in the Navy, this stood for Command Master Chief, but CoinMarketCap today is also showing a 63, and that's greed. So the market is in a greed state. That might be why I think Pyre Phantom is also showing Pyre Phantom had a bullish weekend. Let's put it that way. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a bullish week across the board for all three of our tokens. We'll see. I think a lot of people have been getting antsy, waiting for us to moon. We'll do what we can on our end to take a significant step to make that happen. I promise. Legitimately, I want you guys to know something weird. Are you guys aware of Goldman Sachs? I'm going to get into some macro news. Do you guys know of an investment bank called Goldman Sachs? What's that step, Fexer? Let's just say it'll be a surprise. Let's just say that, Fexer, I have learned that being a fire hose of information can in fact sabotage me. Does that make sense? So while on my end, I think that I need to be as informative as possible to show maximum transparency, sometimes people just want bite-sized information that they can take action on. So I will, perhaps in the future, I will, you get what I'm saying? So in the future, Fexer, I think that what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be revealing more of the history and the storyline of this project from the, like, as it was in the past, not so much talking about the present. Does that make sense? And by the way, guys, you know, there was something I saw as I was looking in articles today. And in fact, could I get a screen share, Mr. Producer? So I want you guys to notice this article right here. Tesla, Boeing highlight earnings rush. What to know this week. Eyes are on Tesla, blah, 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 after the EV makers robo-taxi event fell short. First of all, I'm not even going to open the article. I'm just going to point out the headline. And what I want to point out to you guys is that Elon Musk, you know, he is considered, like, if anything he's good at, it's actually he's good at getting eyeballs, right? He's good at kind of like creating a scene for Tesla. Most people say that he's not that smart as far as engineers go, but I don't fucking know. I never met the guy. But I want you guys to know that, like, Tesla and guys historically and SpaceX historically, they have had all types of hiccups in their marketing. Does that make sense? They have all types. Like, there was a robo-taxi event. Everyone disliked it. Do you guys remember when the Cybertruck came out and he put a cannonball and he smashed the window and it's like, that wasn't supposed to happen, etc., etc.? Does that make sense to you guys? So the fact of the matter is that while we as PYRESWAP, we're such a unique project and we kind of have to go about things in a unique way, the fact that certain things that we've tried in the past, the fact that certain things that we've tried in the past, like, didn't actually work out, does not literally indicate any type of, like, future for this project. Does that make sense? Because, again, Tesla apparently just fucks their marketing up all over the place. Like, fucks it up to the point that I can never achieve those type of fuck-ups. Does that make sense? I can never achieve those fuck-ups. So I want you to understand that, like the sticker in the chat says, red candles can't kill this project. And I think that the fact that we have that in our tokenomics in the first place, I should really feel grateful because other projects could not fuck up marketing or be as experimental with marketing as we can and continue to rise from the dead. Does that make sense? So right now, we already had that blood red August, right? We had a red August. It doesn't make sense for us to think about, like, marketing this as a launch, right? Our narrative is now proving that we are a project that can resurrect from the dead, right? Perform a miracle, because that right there is a bigger flex than just being able to pump at launch, because any meme coin can do that with certain tricks. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? By the way, at this networking event I was at all weekend, I was also saying that all over the place, and people were also making fun of me for it. So if you guys want to know, that's just like going to be a regular theme with me. And I have to ask that because otherwise I have no idea what makes sense to you and what doesn't. Yeah. Anyways, so Goldman Sachs has this crazy bad prediction. So I'm not trying to FUD the market as a whole. Right now, kind of a boring week as far as, like, major economic reports. It is what it is. We can go into this later. This is kind of a boring week. I think that next week is a little bit more interesting. Generally speaking, though, the S&P 500 index is forecast to return 6% in 2024, right? And this was something that was written in 2023. Do you guys see that? And I want you guys to know that Goldman Sachs, and this is a great example of sometimes when a player gets so big they get blind. Goldman Sachs is forecasting that the S&P 500 for the next 10 years is going to return 3%. Does that make sense? This is kind of like, this is pretty bearish. Does that make sense? Because I want you guys to know that the actual line of alpha is like 10 to 11% a year. Does that make sense? So the S&P 500 is supposed to perform like 10%, 11% historically. Goldman Sachs believes not only this, but they believe that over the next 10 years, it's going to be 3% per year on average. Like, they believe that we're going into a decade of slow growth. Does that make sense to you guys? So I want you to understand that, like, I'm not telling you this to make you feel bearish about the economy or put fear in your mind, or stagflation could be exactly why. I want you to know that when I hear stuff like this, and you know, right now gold and silver are like at all-time highs. You know what I mean? Indeed, indeed, Fixer. Isn't that the worst? I tell you guys this because I use this stuff to motivate me that it's on me to outperform the market even more. Does that make sense? Because while we are in the world of crypto, which has a whole bunch of questionable business models, we're also a real business model, right? We are a real bank. We are a real decentralized credit union. And because of this, we have to prove ourselves through the lens of what would I even describe this? I should come up with a name for a confetti project. We'll call it a confetti project. We have to prove ourselves in the lens of a confetti project, but also in the lens of a bank at the same time. Does that make sense? The fact of the matter is, in Web3, confetti projects are the norm. So even if you are a real bank, you still have to have a bit of confetti in your design. So this week, by the way, a couple things that are happening. We're going to be putting on the PYRESWAP.com landing page. Somebody once told me that the PYRESWAP.com landing page, in fact, let's pull that up. Somebody told me that it wasn't clearly apparent that you could scroll down on this page, right? And they recommended that we actually create like a little arrow that says scroll. Does that make sense? Like a little arrow that pop-ups. Okay, so Lesio, guess what? That might have been you. It might have been you. Okay, so the point being is, Alessio, in the past, I kind of dismissed this stuff like, surely that won't make a difference. But believe it or not, I have to literally roll out a red carpet to everybody. Well, Alessio, it might have been, but because the website, it like looks the way it does, you know, effectively, if you don't learn that you can scroll, you might just not scroll. Now, on this resolution, it's obvious that it scrolls because you can see the fucking logos. But other people, if it just pops up like this, if it pops up on a different resolution, it's just not obvious that it's scrollable. So we're gonna have a little indication here to scroll. Secondly, this first section here will just be 4 videos. So do you guys remember the 4 videos? Alessio, I'm aware. And Alessio, I think you complain ironically. Yeah, like you're complaining ironically all the time, because if most people were complaining at some of the rates you guys are complaining, like I don't even know if you guys could get out of bed. So I think that, yeah, you guys complain ironically, and yeah, phenomenal. I get it. I appreciate it. However, Alessio, I would ask you to be aware. Thank you, Naldo. Alessio, I would ask you to be aware that when people are legitimately complaining, sometimes the layman, right, Alessio? Because we're talking about people who study things at a glance. If they go to the Discord and it has people complaining, your complaints are like negative Yelp reviews. Does that make sense? Because some people are trying to make the decision with like as little input as possible. In fact, most people are. Indeed, Alessio. And you know what? As far as overthinking goes, by the way, have I mentioned we got leaderboards in development now? So we're going to have leaderboards specifically. I'll explain the leaderboards we're going to have actually. But anyways, yes. So we're going to have a scroll arrow, something that like deliberately says to scroll. This first section will be 4 videos, right? It'll look like this. You know what I mean? On desktop it will. I think on mobile it'll all be like that. But yeah, these 4 videos, again, introduction, the intro video. Believe it or not, guys, you know what? Javery, that would be an amazing leaderboard, and that might be a great use of AI, by the way. That might be a great use of actual LLMs. Like literally, like which of these people are complaining, and then rank them in their complaining. That would be fucking hilarious. I'm gonna ask Joker if he can build that. Yeah, that would incentivize complaining contests. So in fact, we're not gonna build that, although that would be funny. You know what? No, you know what? It would be funny if we made the leaderboard only visible to the channelers channel. Does that make sense? So the channelers channel can see the leaderboard, but like the regular users can't. Does that make sense? Yeah, so the channelers can at least have this sentiment gauge of the Discord chat. That's actually a cool tool. We'll come up with that later. Yeah. So intro video. And by the way, do you guys remember when I did the intro video, I was doing it in the other office? Does that make sense? So while we did have this purple and green, lighting, the production level was way lower. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yeah. Anyways, so that video is going to actually get put on the front page. I think that video should get reshot, but putting it on the front page helps motivate me to reshoot it. Does that make sense? Make sense? Intro video, we're going to have the Yabonks interview, right? Intro, then we're going to have origin story, right? Now the origin story, there's no point in reshooting it. Does that make sense? Because reshooting it would actually remove the candidness which we shot it with in the first place. Does that make sense? The origin story is still one of the highest viewed videos on our channel. Are you guys aware of that? So like the origin story is powerful. I think some of you guys were actually there. I think Alessio and it might have been Maddie. You guys were in the chat and I was just recording myself talking to you guys, telling the story from the beginning. And yeah, so that story being like as candid as it were, I think that has a lot of transparency. So I think that people like to see high production, but then they like to see behind the veil, as it were, behind the curtain. So that has to be like the origin stories there as well. The Yabonks interview, Yabonks, and the IWV demo. Now, the IWV demo right now, basically these four things. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Naldo, I went to a venture capital thing over this weekend. I don't know if you were here for that. And they had these panels, they had these speakers, and I was just, you know, now that my perspective has been shifted to think more about marketing, I was thinking about who up there sounds like me, like a fire hose of information, where they get so granular and detailed, it comes across as gibberish, because I didn't know what their projects were. Does that make sense? So sometimes you can tell who's a real founder, because you know they're just detailed as shit about stuff that people aren't looking at. But then also, I was thinking about who's like the most compelling storyteller. And the fact of the matter is that the people who are the most compelling, like I remember them. I still don't even remember like what their project does. Does that make sense? But like they were just telling the shit out of a story, right? And I realized that that is definitely critical. And storytelling is a huge part of this DEX as well. This DAP, right? This mega DAP. And I was talking to this guy and he said that, you know, not only is storytelling better than data, but when people look at data, they also extrapolate a story. Does that make sense? He was saying data also tells a story. So the fact of the matter is I'm going to start pivoting to the leaderboard idea and explain why we're doing this in the first place. I've been talking for a long time about how PYRESWAP is a decentralized credit union, right? Would you guys agree? I think since 2023 I've been talking about that. So we use GameFi. We use literally gamification in order to get people to interact with our DApp in certain ways. Does that make sense? Because you can kind of make wagers about people based on what you see them be consistent at. Does that make sense to you guys? Like wherever you see consistency, like that's where you're going to expect it to continue. Almost everybody in Web3 is a trend trader. And they have to be because there's almost no fundamentals. Does that make sense? With the exception of PYRESWAP and the GPSE, right? But there's almost no fundamentals, right? So basically speaking, where you guys, I think, are very bullish on this project is because you see us deploying, or should I say, applying a consistent effort, like just continuing to continue. I think the fact that, you know, our user base is mature as you guys are, like you understand how important that is, right? We literally just, we're just doing this 4 times a week. Like you see me all the time. How many times have we canceled the PYRESWAP show? Maybe like 4 times. And we've now been doing it since like fucking February, right? Like it used to be called the Ultimate Hour AMA, right? But literally since February, since the original beta, since original open beta started, we were only on Phantom at the time. We've now been doing this since February. Now we're high production. We call it the PYRESWAP show. That kind of evolved. But where you guys see us being consistent is where you guys continue to feel bullish, knowing that legitimately, like, when a project kind of blows up as a success, it's always like a linchpin ingredient. It's like there was one small thing that was missing, and then when that component gets reconfigured, the whole thing just takes off. That has happened to me several times in my life where I had to learn where I was self-sabotaging myself. And as soon as I was able to reconfigure that about myself and the way that I was going about things, I had almost overnight success. I can't even describe. When I was in life insurance, I had to change something about myself. I went from being last place in the office to being 12th place internationally in a period of 6 weeks. I want to be clear about that. Yeah. CJ, that could be one of the influencers. That could be I have no idea. Yeah. That could be that might have been one of the last influencers. Or that might be, yeah, that might be Naldo's wallet, to be honest. Yeah, that might be the ambassador. Yeah. Does that look right? Yeah. That would also be something to DM me, if that makes sense. Yeah. 190K. That sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah, possibly. 190K. Wait a minute. Hang on. CJ, hang on. Okay, I'll get back to you, okay? I'll find out. Yeah, I'll find out. That might be, yeah, you might be able to tell from more of the history. Yeah, like, I'll get back to you. Okay, so back to what I was talking about before, and, story that et cetera. Damn, I had a fucking tangent. That was a tangent. Okay, I gotta literally, like, get ironed out on not going with tangents. Thank you so much to whoever here is on Kick and or Twitch writing commentary as well. Yeah, okay, then that is probably a marketing fee, CJ. Yeah, that is probably a marketing fee. Yeah, it looks like a marketing wallet to me, right? Looks like somebody who's yeah. Anyways, that's my my guess. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Most of the things that have come from the house wallet, the custodial wallet, the 8372 wallet have all been related to like marketing and or things adjacent to that. If that makes sense. Okay. So yeah. Like I legitimately like there's nothing else to do with that wallet right now than that. If that makes sense. Okay, so what the fuck was I talking about just now? Okay, leaderboards. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna have 3 leaderboards in development. 3 leaderboards, and one of them is it's called most apotropaic witches. So I'm gonna actually do a little debut. Most apotropaic witches. That is literally a word. I'm not making this word up. Most apotropaic witches, and this is an LP leaderboard, and the LP is based around ranking. Specifically, the defense liquidity of Pyre Phantom or Pyre BNB or Pyre EVAX. Does that make sense? So, what is the defense liquidity, right? It's literally all the liquidity that the max swap buttons touch. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you guys know what I mean when I say max swap buttons? Swap entire balance at the bottom of the Incantation Witchvault? Yep. So those 4 liquidity pools, we actually weight the one with the gas token higher. But generally speaking, this LP shows that somebody is playing good witch defense against the knights. Does that make sense? Indeed, yeah. So it's protective magic. Like Fexer just posted that screenshot there. Most protective witches, right? Witches that are in fact putting shields up. Make sense? So this is a leaderboard. It will show, I think it'll show the top 10 wallets, and then it'll also show like this ... section where you can see where if you're not in the top 10, it'll show you like where you're at, like place 43 or whatever. There's also another LP leaderboard which just talks about what we would consider the blue chip liquidity. So this is, of course, like for Phantom as an example, Bitcoin Phantom, Phantom ETH, Bitcoin ETH. Does that make sense? What's the ETA? Fixer, I have no idea. Yeah, I am not good at that. I'll tell you that supposedly it's a very small job. We might have, I'll tell you this, the leaderboards are going to be like a work in progress. So we might have the demo of it, like we might show the leaderboard on the front end, because the front end is really easy to build. The front end takes like 1 day, so I've heard. So the front end is really easy to build, and we might show the leaderboard. It'll be on a separate page, by the way. So you'll have another thing in the header of PYRESWAP. It'll be like ranking or something like that. We're gonna have a bunch of leaderboards on that page, right? They'll also be collapsible, so you can, look at one. This leaderboard here, which again, as you guys know, are the arbitrage liquidity pools. Does that make sense? We're also gonna have a ranking pool for this, and I believe the name is, I think it's like most devout observance. And this implies that providing this type of LP is kind of like being a religious tither. Does that make sense? Like on the GameFi, on the storytelling side. Does that make sense? So generally, Knight players and Witch players can both be devout. Does that make sense? Right? To whatever religion they're part of. Make sense? We're not gonna have any Knight liquidity dashboards yet, because most of the fact of the matter is, Knight liquidity dashboards are gonna go on the Knight websites. So 2ohm.finance, 3ohm.finance, zohmfinance.com. Does that make sense to you guys? Those are the, yeah, and thank you on Twitter. Thank you on Twitter. Yeah, those are the, those are where Knight players are going to end up with their leaderboards. Does that make sense? Right? So, definitely speaking, we're going to get TWAPs higher before you guys see the revelation of what the new Knight website looks like. Does that make sense? Because we want to, I think that it makes sense to compound that revelation with some exciting price chart action. Would you guys agree? Like, if I debut the aesthetic overhaul of 2ohmfinance.com right now, that isn't really going to do shit for... It might do something for you guys who are already bullish no matter what, but like, I think it's better to like reveal that all at the same time. Make sense? And that's not even completed yet. So the third leaderboard, and I haven't named it yet, but it is specifically about the incantation of Witchfall, right? So IWV leaderboard. And I'm going to explain the math around how the IWV leaderboard works. And I'm going to pull this up here on screen share in a second. Let me pull this up. So you guys have all heard of these math concepts. This one's big enough? No, it's not big enough. Okay. All right, this one's big enough. Okay, do you guys remember from school these math concepts? Mean, median, mode, and range? Javery, believe it or not, that is the opposite of the goal. We will eventually link to them. But Javery, believe it or not, in order to factionalize the user base, we are in fact trying to grow it big enough. Yeah, we are in fact trying to grow it big enough to the point where we don't want that. Because we want people that are Knight players to like think of the fact that they have their own website, right? Like they're in the PYRESWAP periphery, but they're not part of PYRESWAP. They're part of 2ohm Finance. They're part of 3ohm Finance. Does that make sense? This is different than most projects, by the way. Most projects, they want to put everybody in the same bucket. Does that make sense? And that's generally for the sake of marketing, I think, right? It is a bit more difficult for us, but like by putting this in design now, we're able to be sustainable in the long term. Because some people, Javery, by the way, they don't even come to the PYRESWAP Discord. They're still over in the 2ohm, 3ohm Discord and 2ohm, 3ohm, Xeon Discord, and like that's how they think about the project, which is totally fine because we want people to be diversified. So like the fact that you, Javery, are hanging out with the channelers and you guys think channeler things, later on, there'll be other factions, and they're in their own Discord with their own website. Now, naturally, they all use the DEX, right? The underlying DEX mechanisms of PYRESWAP apply to all the projects. But yeah, like they're gonna have their own things going on their own websites. But that will just be for the future, to be clear. Yeah, like so like they'll have their own leaderboards, they'll have that as well. We can eventually link to them. Does that make sense? Like literally like, hey, you can pop up that website in the whatever, right? But you get what I'm saying. Yeah, like you could have a drop down header, like open this one, right? But Jay-Ree, we probably won't implement that until we have like all 9 of them working. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Jay-Ree, I use this concept called cow catcher, right? And are you aware of like how on the front of a train there's like this grill that's like shaped like this, and when trains cross the things, they do that to knock cows off the track or debris. So we are in fact trying to divide the user base. We are in fact trying to spread you guys out, because you guys being spread out is what makes it, that's what allows it to be a large variety of opportunity inside the GPSC, right? We're a crypto economy inside the crypto economy. So like, yeah, we are in fact trying to use different social medias and different websites for the dApps. Will they all be in the same grander scheme of things? Yes, absolutely. Again, think of it this way. You know, Amazon also owns Audible and they own Twitch. Do you know what I mean? But they wouldn't really put Audible and Twitch all on the same website with Amazon. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's actually a bad example, but whatever. But you get what I'm saying. The IWV leaderboard, let me drink some water here because I'm definitely losing my voice. The IWV leaderboard, specifically, it targets the median of stakers, right? So Jay-Ree, as you and Fexer and Maddie, as you guys make these strategic calls, right? You guys announce strategies to the other witches, whether they're paying attention or not. This leaderboard is about making the channeler's job a bit easier. Does that make sense? So the IWV leaderboard makes the channeler's job easier, because what you're basically looking at is actually, you're looking at who is the most median staker. Yeah, who is consistently median. Does that make sense? Bravo. Yeah, bravo. Yeah. Not to mention the amount that was bought, right? Yeah, bravo. And by the way, guys, we do want to stay above like 24 million Pyre Phantom when we get to the mead level. So like, yeah, like I want you to know that Genesis just won't last forever either way. So like, we'll get there, okay? But who is consistently in the median? So if Fexer and Jay-Ree and Maddie, they make this call out, and like everybody stake 10K, right? Everybody stake 10K Pyre Phantom. Let's say you have some people who are either not listening to Discord or they just don't really fucking understand what they're doing, right? They might be passively staked, right? So the IWV leaderboard says, okay, who is in the middle of the staking sequence, right? So when you look at the median here, you've got the numbers 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 7, right? So if you can imagine those being which players? Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like I'm talking directly to Jay-Ree, but I do want to I want to ask that to everybody. Do you guys get what I'm saying here? Yep. So I don't mean in sequence order, because in sequence order doesn't matter, but rather, because sequence order here is also weird, right? But the fact of the matter is who is closest to the middle? Because when you're closest to the middle, you're now being it's now being revealed to you that, by the way, you're kind of getting jammed into being compliant. Does that make sense? Like, if you actually can demonstrate compliance with this, that is actually how you rank, right? So people who are not anywhere near the median, they don't do well on the leaderboard. Does that make sense? Everybody's, in fact, competing to be the most middle. Does that make sense? That's also, by the way, I realized this was extremely fucking difficult to convey. Yeah, exactly. And who is the closest to the middle? So, by the way, if you say 10K, we'll actually simulate this, right? If you say like 10K or whatever, right, and then you have like 9 people who do 10K, so you'll have like 10K, right, and then 10K. We'll just say 3 people, right? 10K, and then I guess I'll do it like one more. And then another one, let's say they do like 70K, right? Somebody is just like not listening, or they want to whale the witch fault or whatever, right? Like this number here, right? Like whoever actually ends up here, because you got to understand, smoldering takes place at this snapshot. Yep, exactly, Jay-Ree, yeah. Yep. Whales are too big, frogs are too small. Exactly that. So people are still getting smoldered as this happens. So like, even if you say 10K and you got people saying exactly 10K, very rarely are you going to have people who have the exact same amount. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So this is another small upside where sometimes everybody wants to stake last because smoldering sucks, but smoldering can work out to your benefit if it puts you closer to the median than it normally would. Does that make sense? Closer to the middle of the pack. Because like, if 3 people stake the same amount, it's like the guy who gets smoldered once, that's now kind of like a better benefit. Making sense? That might be hard to fucking describe. Okay, but yeah, the players who are consistently median. The players who are consistently median, right? Like, that's how you fucking rank here. Now, you might be wondering, why the fuck would you care about this leaderboard, right? Why would anybody care about these leaderboards? Well, legitimately, it's from us taking blockchain data and organizing it and cleaning it that it becomes useful. And this is how, over time, we're able to actually assign individual credit to wallets. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. Okay. Anyways, let's see. We're at this amount of time. Who here has a question? Let me see. Did I have anything else to talk about? Fear and greed. It's a greed day. I mean, our charts are arguably, like, over the weekend they were doing well. I'll tell you that. Like, always good to see that. I have some stuff. We're doing stuff this week that's very bullish. We're going to have short form happening this week. We have another person literally arriving at the airport today. I met 2 people over the weekend that literally have the ability to just deploy small amounts of KOLs that are in fact extremely niche. I met multiple over the weekend. Yeah, we're all going to make it. And, you know, it's interesting how sometimes unplanned things, yeah, KOLs, KOL, this is like, KOL means key opinion leader. And this is like a specific type of influencer. Yeah, it does mean shill, as it were. It does mean shill. This is something that Web3, this is a word that Web3 has gotten very, very behind because I'll show you guys something actually pretty interesting. There is, let me see if I can find it on screen share actually. I think you would call it Kato.ai. Okay, I'm going to search for Kato AI. And let me see if I can go to images. And okay, so Kato.ai, this is actually a Web3 analytics thing. And I'll go to their fucking Twitter. Maybe that'll work. See if it allows me to. And what it does is it gives you mind share. Do you guys know what mind share means? Mind share, it actually shows you heat maps of Twitter narratives in crypto. Like, I'm not joking. So like right here. Yeah. So this is something that Kato AI fucking retweeted. I don't know what that is. But Kato AI is doing retweets of their dashboard here. This stuff costs like $1,000 a month. To be clear, we're not spending $1,000 a month on Kato AI. But like, what you can kind of like learn from it, is basically every single day. Look at this. This is actually the good one, right? This is Miles Deutscher, and he's saying 50% mind share for AI. And what mind share here means, let me see if I can close this, goodness gracious. Okay, what mind share means is legitimately who on Web3, who on crypto Twitter is talking about what. And by the way, this was yesterday. So it can actually change every day. So AI was 50%, then it dropped to 30%. There's a lot of narrative around this AI meme coin. Have you guys heard of this? So this AI meme coin, everyone thinks that like this is now the new meta. I think this will again, what I'm bullish about is that you guys can see DeFi and GameFi here as number 3 and number 4. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? DeFi and GameFi here are number 3 and number 4. And yeah, that's where our area of strength is, right? Guess what, guys? DeFi and GameFi rank above Layer 2. We rank above ZK. We rank above stablecoin. Makes sense? We rank above ETF, right? So DeFi and GameFi, in my opinion, the fact that there are number 3 and number 4 slices, I believe that means that, you know, the way things work is that DeFi and GameFi is the next to blow up. if that makes sense to you guys. So that's going to be the wave that we ride, in my opinion. But legitimately, Web3 crypto is just like run kind of by these KOL cults where like people think somebody is smart and they are in fact kind of just milking retail for their sentiments because nobody understands how to make decisions. So like it's fucking crazy. Anyways, I'm not going to talk shit. But the point being is I at least now know about Kato AI, and even though I'm not subscribing to it, I'm at least following it, so sometimes I can see these heat maps, because normally you can't see a heat map like this unless you want to pay them, you know, 12 grand a year. But yeah, anyways, hope that makes sense. That's another example I can show you guys. Oh, Alessio, that won't really be until phase 2. Yeah, because we don't have that mechanism running. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, Pyre gas burning and 2-ohm burning from utilities does not increase TVB. Yeah, so TVB is not, TVB is only increased through a micro burn in the swap, which we don't have yet. So in the future, when PYRESWAP has its own proprietary factory, part of the swap fee will actually just get automatically burned, the input token. Yeah, like a small micro amount, like something small. It's not the biggest part of the fee, it's the smallest part of the fee, but literally we burn Ethereum, we burn Bitcoin, we burn fucking USDC, just small amounts of it. So the reason why the fuck we would do this, because like why the fuck would you just always have this small amount getting burned? Well, believe it or not, in Web3 you have these kind of like disowned piles of money all over the place. Does that make sense? On Phantom you have all the multi-chain assets, right? Multi-chain money. And multi-chain money is kind of treated the same way. It's like nobody can move it and like it still gets volume for whatever reason. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? So like it just ends up in this kind of it's like this kind of weird, what people don't realize is that these projects, these piles of coins that are kind of discarded, they still have value if you know how to apply a value to it. So PYRESWAP in later phases, and I'll reveal this as well. This is not happening anytime soon because it requires phase 2 to at least happen first. PYRESWAP in later phases will have a TVB. Do you guys know the next part? ETF. And what that means is, as our tokens get volume, they begin filling up this burn wallet, right? This burn bucket, does that make sense? And based on the volume of the tokens, the composition of this wallet changes. Does that make sense? So when Bitcoin has a lot of volume, a lot of Bitcoin ends up going up. When Pyre Phantom has a lot of volume, Pyre Phantom's size of this ETF will go up. So then later on, what this means is that the burn wallet will have a dollar value associated with it, right? Like it'll have a D-Bank wallet. Does that make sense? The D-Bank wallet. So the D-Bank wallet, those tokens, they change every day. Does that make sense? So you can in fact trade on how you expect this basket of assets to change in value day to day. Not just on how the assets go up and down in value, but over time, the proportional slices of the pie are always shifting around. Does that make sense? This is a weird ass concept, but yes, it will be a later thing, maybe phase 3, phase 4. We have a lot to teach people before we can do this, but yeah, we will have this. TVB does not care about the IWV smoldering, and it does not care about mead burns. Yeah, it does not care about that at all. Yeah, that is a completely different type of burn with an actual burn wallet. So Pyre Phantom and 2-ohm and 3-ohm and Z-ohm, they have an actual burn function in their contract, so their total supply can actually decrease. Does that make sense? So their total supply can actually decrease. Other tokens, when you send them to a burn wallet, while they are effectively removed from the economy, this doesn't actually reduce their total supply. So Alessio, think of it for the night game. One of the advantages of this burn wallet is that 2-ohm and 3-ohm and Z-ohm, they burn, but they go to a burn wallet, which means that their total supply is still kind of increasing, but it's easier for knights to manage. Does that make sense? So TVB is there to help knights over time kind of like hedge the ability to increase total supply, because there's always going to be a certain amount of it getting burned. And when I mean burned, I mean going to a burn wallet that doesn't reduce total supply. Am I speaking gibberish at this point? What I'm describing is so fucking niche. Like, I want you to know TVB is a really cool idea because Nobody else would think about what's the value in sending off money to get burned. But you can actually build stuff from that. And that's what we're going to flex in later phases. Yeah. Alessio, you're always good for that. You're always good for that. But yeah, so Fexer, if you understand, right? You remember how meeting can in fact undo the printing way faster, right? Exactly, Fexer, exactly. And it'll also hold things like Bitcoin and fucking stable coins and your favorite coin and meme coins, you know what I mean? Whatever the fuck is deployed in the DEX, it'll always be collecting a certain amount of this. So, like, as these things happen, the wallet itself can become an index. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? The TVB wallet can be an index. And guess what? It's a corruptible index because anybody at any time can just go send tokens to TVB if they want to change the value of the ETF. Fexer, using, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. Basically, you tokenize it. You create a token that behaves in a certain way based on the TVB's performance. Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, that's weird as shit too, and I don't even know if the way I designed it can work in the programming. So, like, in finance it works, but I'm not a dev, right? So I still have to, this design is only at notebook level. So I've never even shown it to the devs, right? But if you want to know why TVB is there, it's there for the future because in the future, the TVB will be a number that only ever goes up. Does that make sense? We might have TVB higher than TVL one day. Do you guys know what I mean? Like just burning over time. Small things, like even Bitcoin, it'll just get burned. You know what I mean? A step past napkin level. But yeah, so legitimately, like, why would we burn these things and who does it benefit? Well, believe it or not, it helps the total supply of all the projects go up. So we, Pyre Phantom, 2 3 Xeon, we later on want to make these high volume tokens. Does that make sense? We're going to have so many utilities for these tokens that the epoch counter will always be driving volume. Does that make sense? We always want surges of volume to be happening with these tokens again, right? We want what other projects can accomplish once. We want to be able to do that several times a week, several times a month, something like this, right? And, but yeah, the point being is, as you guys are aware, we have 30 fucking tokens, right? Right? We've got 34 or 35, right? Just on 3 chains. Before we add other chains into the mix. Does that make sense? Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know what CJ's talking about. I've heard of this. Yeah, I could look into that. I heard about that before, but CJ, I believe that it was like something about it because we're a DEX and they're a DEX. Yeah, we'll get back to that. CJ, yeah, I'll talk to you. If you want to, we can talk about that later for sure. But I have thought about it, but I didn't end up doing it because I got distracted with something else. I think that this is, I don't know if this would really be a game changer for us, if that makes sense. But we could, in theory, pair Pyre Phantom with that token. Yeah, I don't own any of that token. Does that make sense? Although, well, anyways, okay. So you guys are aware of the idea of an aggregate market cap, right? Because we have so many tokens, right? Like, so when we think about the GPSC as an aggregate market cap, it's like Dibs, D-Share, US Dibs, Ribs, Hoggy, H-Share, right? That's just that. Then you have Pyre BNB, then Staked Pyre BNB, right? Then you have the bond version of those tokens, right? So D-Bond and R-Bond, whatever the fuck you have, right? And then that's just BNB. So then, like, legitimately, then go to the next chain, and it's like 11 more tokens, whatever, right? Like, however the count is. So you have to understand, when we wage war for market cap, as our project, yeah, we're going to measure our aggregate market cap on the landing page eventually too, right? But right now, it kind of doesn't matter because it's not even fucking complete yet. As we do this, our vector of attack is actually in the horizontal. It's not in the vertical, right? Because Dibs is not really ever going to go higher than BNB. You know what I mean? Or 1/1000th of BNB, right? So it's not like dibs can go to double what BNB is. It ends up getting debased, right? It gets inflated, and then effectively you grow your market cap by having a larger total supply. Does that make sense? Right? So we increase our market cap for a lot of these projects, the elastic supply ones, through total supply. Like that's the actual attack vector. Exactly, Jabri, because these tokens are elastic supply. So what that means is if they go too high up in price, they end up increasing the supply to go back down in price. That's the whole vibratile idea, right? How can red candles be good, right? Like, okay, well, we increase total supply that way. So what that means, by the way, is having this TVB means that part of the total supply expansion, whenever it goes through volume, it'll always be permanent, right? So you guys have heard me talk about, as we're growing our user base for PYRESWAP, sometimes people say, there used to be 20 people playing, and now there's only 10, right? They say this, and they think that this is going down. They think that, oh no, our user base is going down. You have to understand, crypto is volatile. It always has ups and downs. What we're trying to really increase is the amount of people that know how the game is played, that just understand the game, because that will naturally, that'll naturally ebb and flow, right? It'll wax and it'll wane because there's always going to be a variable amount of yield to play, right? Or certain time zones will always do better because we have more user base on that continent. Does that make sense? There's always going to be this variety because we're in crypto, guys. We're fucking in crypto. So you're not going to have like a linear increase of the people playing ever, right? But what can we always increase that is very difficult to decrease? What can we always increase? The amount of people that are aware of the project and have at least tried it once. People that have played the IWV once, right? So you guys haven't seen me play the IWV for a fucking month on here, right? But I still count towards our goal because I will play it again. Do you know what I mean? I will play it again, right? So the fact of the matter is that we want to always increase the potential amount of players because the potential amount of players, unless people are dying, it doesn't really go down. Make sense? Same concept with these burn tokens. Like no matter what, there's always a certain amount of total supply that can't ever get eliminated from total supply. Thank you. Yeah. But does that make sense? So you guys are still here. Everybody here is continuing to live. That's great. And that what I mean is like that means that even when our price charts are bloody, even when the yield is low, even when the volume is low, like we don't really lose from the user base goal. Because I know that the only way you guys see it is on the dashboard, but like we look at things like, is the Discord going up, right? Like Discord people showing up is like, rarely does the number go down. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, so watching Discord users go up, that is what I think is the most bullish indicator that we're making progress. Does that make sense? Not the actual DApp dashboard about user base, right? Because I think once people show to the Discord, if they engage in the Discord, they'll eventually learn it. Do you guys know what I mean? So, for instance, on our short forms, like our TikTok or our fucking our Reels and our Facebook, the only call to action link we have is joining the Discord. Does that make sense? All we want is for them to get into the Discord. Because once they're in the Discord, they're now going to get the PYRESWAP show pinged to them. Does that make sense? They're going to see the general chat. They're going to figure out that there's other things going on here. Make sense? So like, when you're trying to make progress, focus on the parameter that's always going to increase and it's hard to decrease. It's not variable. So I know that this is not like a metric that's easily shared, but I also have to think about, I have to extrapolate in my head, am I teaching more people about it? Am I doing a good job at teaching this? And do they see a demonstration and do they actually try it? Because once they're actually at that level, now they're in the user base potentially, right? So some people, I haven't seen them in months, but I know that they've played this game before back in June or July. Does that make sense? We have not lost progress because they're now chasing a meme coin or whatever. Does that make sense? Because those meme coins will die, and then of course, what will live? Yeah, what will not die? What can't be killed? You get what I'm saying? Yeah, like so, I don't have to, I'm not here to kind of enslave people's wallets, right? They can do whatever the fuck they want with their money, right? I'm here to effectively make this project like the island of solace, right? Where they always feel comfortable bringing money back here, right? And that just requires, there you go. I mean, I don't know what that means there, but yeah, I appreciate that, Shavery. Yeah, like, we always have the ability to, okay, got it. We always have the ability to increase the amount of people who have tried this once, who have demoed this once, who have done it on video, and therefore, once that awareness keeps generating, even if they only learn about it once and they like turn off Discord and they fucking leave and they start chasing meme coins, or maybe they get fucking put into a coma and they're in a coma for 6 months. When they get back out, let's say PYRESWAP is at fucking peg by then or whatever, who fucking knows, they now remember this project. Does that make sense? They're like, oh yeah, what's happening on here? I realized that in order for me to get people to get into the IWV, I had to show them stuff superficially that makes more sense to them. So we're going to get into doing that soon. Anyways, guys, we're out of time now. I hope you guys had a good market Monday. It was kind of boring, and things were looking... I guess the crypto looks greedy today, but more to come. We'll see you guys tomorrow. If anybody wants to DM me, they can. I know that I have like 25 people waiting for me to respond. I was at these venture capital events all weekend, and I didn't get to get my inbox taken care of, but I will soon. I want to thank you guys for coming to the PYRESWAP show, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.